Hey, Dooberteers, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited today because today we're going to dive into the equine side of things, and I'm very excited to have Caroline with us today. So, Caroline, welcome to the program.
Why, thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about you and tell us about your organization, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So obviously my accent, I'm originally from Ireland, currently living in California, where I've been for the last almost 30 years now. I've loved horses since a very young age, 6+ when I started harassing my mom to get me pony posters and pony ornaments and everything. So a lifelong love of horses. I started my interaction with horses probably when I was 11 or so through my grandparents who had neighbors who had horses and a girl who was the same age as me. So that's when I first started learning how to ride and learning about horses. And when I moved here to California in 1993, and I started getting into horses here on this side of the ocean, then I started, I suppose, questioning a little bit more the mainstream horse culture and the process by which you would normally go to a professional and ask them for help with like things like saddle fit and hoof trimming and actually how to ride, bridles and stuff like that, which, a lot of times you're not encouraged to dive deeply into the animal aspect of what you're doing in horse riding. And it's more about the riding and getting on and just relying completely on professionals. But I started looking at my horse's reactions to some of the things that professionals were doing, particularly in the training aspect. And I'm like, okay, this is not working for me. And I started asking questions. And what I discovered is a lot of these professionals couldn't actually answer my questions. I would be like, why is my horse doing this? Well, what is the point of doing this? What are you hoping to achieve? I don't understand the connection between what you're doing and what you're saying and what my horse is responding to in a way that doesn't seem to me like, yes, I get what you're doing or get what you're asking me to do. So that's when, I guess in 2016, I was like, I wonder if any other people like me are having the same experience, because my ultimate motivation is I did like riding horses. I started riding when I was 12, but I've never wanted to ride horses at the expense of their welfare. It was like I wanted a happy horse or a horse that was, empowered to be the partner in what it is we were doing. And so that's when I started diving into it, and I found that there was, I guess, so much misinformation, lack of regulation, lack of experience. It was really kind of the Wild West out there, where there really wasn't any recipe per se for saying, if I, as someone who is mostly concerned with the well-being of my horse, wants to set up that environment for them, I can't really rely on professionals, and it's up to me now to really educate myself. I have to be my horse's advocate in terms of being able to accurately identify the professionals who actually are experienced and educated enough to actually give me advice. And then also this critical thinking aspect of then looking at my horse and saying, okay, this professional seems, pretty motivated, pretty educated, pretty experienced. I like what she's told me, but now I'm going to see if this is the answer that my horse needs. And that'll be my ultimate yes or no to say this was the problem and this is the fix. And that's kind of where I started with Equitopia. And then who's entitled to give you an opinion? Who's entitled to teach you? So when I started looking at how would I make a shift in horse culture, I had to look at it from a global level, because, with everything, like, what are the standards? What would the standards be? And they would have to be sufficient to make that global change. So I started looking at how do we shift that so that its opinions are minimized and the evidence and research and protocols that deliver results are maximized in the horse culture. So it was about raising awareness, providing the evidence and research, and creating protocols for all these various aspects of horse and rider welfare and training that would make the outcomes readily identifiable, say, in terms of the 5 domains of animal welfare, which equally apply to horses. So it's the lived experience of the horse. Can we relatively accurately look at any horse at any point in time within the context, of course, and say, yes, we are on the right track as far as this horse feeling or being treated in a way that optimizes their welfare?
I mean, I really love this story because, like you said, you were passionate since you were a young girl. Approximately what age did you actually purchase or get your first horse?
Well, actually, I was in my 20s when I got my first horse when I came here. I'd actually just ridden horses for other people up until then. But like I lived in the city, so there wasn't really any exposure to horses where I lived. But my grandparents had a farm about 60 miles away. So every weekend I would be at my grandparents and for long stretches of the summer. So that's where I connected with the horse element, which was my grandparents' neighbors. And then there was other people, once I got involved in that local horse culture, there were other people then who would say, will you ride my horse or will you help me with this horse? So that's really what I did for the longest time. And so I didn't really have what I call the responsibility of a horse until I was in my 20s. And that's when this journey really kind of kicked in, because there is a big difference between just getting on and riding other people's horses and having that experience where they are with you every day and you see the elements outside of the ridden work, like where they're kept, how they're kept, like, in a field versus in a stall, how they interact with other horses. There's like their lives go on like 24 hours a day. At a lot of time, the ridden side of things is only like an hour a day or 2 hours a day. And so again, like this goes back to like the lived experience of the horse is expensive beyond, what traditional culture looks at, which is very much on the microscope and performance more than a lot of other things. So
Yeah, so you obviously got your first horse and went, I got a lot of questions, a lot of stuff that I don't know about. And like any good person, you said, well, I'm going to figure this out, right? You started asking questions, you started going on to YouTube, and then you realized that this is a major gap for people that love horses, want to have horses, but don't even know where to begin.
the thing is, again, like the thought process was like, how do we rise above like the very opinion based aspect of it versus the evidence and research on what can show us. So I had to look at like, how would Equitopia elevate itself to be that authority, because it is an authority. Like everybody wants to know, like if I'm taking advice from someone, what qualifies them to give me advice? What is that bar? And so when I set out to look at how I would set that bar, because it is about collaboration, but people have very strong opinions about animals. And well, they have strong opinions about a lot of things, but particularly in the horse world, there really is a lot of very strong opinions. And when you start looking and extracting like what the opinions are based on, a lot of it is tradition and it doesn't actually have a lot of backup. And so I wanted to be able to keep the conversation focused on, okay, how do we know that this is true? Or what are we basing this, like, when a saddle fits, this is what we look for. When the foot is trimmed correctly, this is what we look for. When a horse is not in pain, this is what we look for. So I looked for some of the world's leading researchers in these areas of importance for the horses, because again, it goes back to everything's connected. A badly fitting saddle will not be enough to have good training survive. So it all has to work in order to get that whole horse, whole rider, like optimal performance and welfare. Just like an athlete, like if an athlete has shoes that are too tight for them and they're running, then, they're not going to be able to perform optimally because those shoes are going to hurt after a while. Even if they can run fast and the rest of their body is comfortable, it's the running in tight shoes is going to be the downfall of the overall performance. So the same thing with horses. So it is everything connected. So there's rider posture, there's rider skill, there's bits, there's bridles, there's feet, there's nutrition. There's like a whole load of elements from breeding, genetics, everything. I mean, everything is connected. There's the disease, there's pathology, and all these things, unfortunately are necessary aspects of education. And it is also, the owner has to unfortunately be that advocate, because it is their vested interest, if they love their horses, the outcome of how well that horse will do or how they perform, what bills will be coming forth from veterinary issues if you don't do the right thing. They are the ones who are in the best position to advocate for their horses, because hopefully they see them more than anyone else. So they have the history. So the thing is being able to recognize what you see every day when you are with your horse. What do you notice? Are there any changes? Things that you can then inform professional. Well, my horse started resting his left hind leg 3 days ago. He doesn't usually do that. I don't know if that's indicative, because all of a sudden he doesn't want to go forward, or he doesn't want to go right. He only wants to go left, or whatever problem surfaces. It's never in isolation. There's been a lead up. So horses do communicate through their body language, through their movement, and it is up to us to try and speak that language.
Yeah. Yeah. To learn how to connect with them and understand what's going on. So what year did you launch Equitopia?
Launched in 2016.
Okay.
So it's been 10 years, 10 years this year. Yeah, we launched. I wanted it to be like an affordable, like low cost, high quality platform for people so that there was no excuse. Horses are expensive. They can live for up to 30 years. You're going to have routine maintenance from veterinary care. You also probably have, it's rare a horse is going to go its lifetime without having multiple emergency situations that, incur expensive veterinary bills. The membership we started out, it's like $10 a month, and we provide all the webinars and blog posts and research articles from curated, investigated educators. And then the online courses kind of dive more deeply into the specifics, whether it's training or dentistry or whatever. So that was the objective of starting it, is to be this like one-stop shop platform that would equally provide educational content to owners as well as professionals. We watch the kind of language we use, like to make sure that owners are not blinded by overly academic or technical phrases that they don't understand. So we try to bridge the gap so that collaboration is actually happening between professionals and owners, and that it's elevated levels of discussion so that we're actually getting closer to results and not just wasting words that are not based in some sort of evidence, research and reality in terms of what's happening for the horses and riders.
Nice. And so how's it going? So 10 years in, I mean, how many people have signed up for courses? How many people have you helped?
Yeah, so I think we have about 1,200 members, and we've probably sold, probably at least 8,000 or 9,000 courses, I would say, over the course of the 10 years. So I think we've had quite a few people. I get emails all the time saying how transformative the information has been and how it's changed the trajectory of people's care routine and maintenance routine for their horses. And so that's very rewarding. It is also, there is a little bit of a challenge in terms of like I would call it a little bit of overwhelm in terms of the expectations people might have starting out with their horses, how it's going to be. I'm not going to say it's going to be relatively easy, but I mean, it is a bit of an overwhelm. That's what I'm just going to call it. It's overwhelming when you actually start dissecting what you don't know compared to what you think it's going to be when you actually go out to buy a horse. Because I've been through it myself. I mean, there have been times where I've been in tears because as I dive into nutrition, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to navigate this world of nutrition? How am I going to navigate the world of saddle fit? Because it's aside from the technical aspect of things, that is overwhelming. You're talking about like a piece of equipment that is going to determine how comfortable your horse is and how comfortable you are, and suits you specifically with your particular body type and all that, and also the horse and his her conformation and movement and everything, and it changes. It's not like, hey, you fit the saddle once and then you're done. It shifts. Right. According to how the horse develops and everything. So it's like this constant dynamic moving target of, problem solutions. And how are we gauging progress, So yeah, it is a lot. It's a lot.
So as the leader now of this, you've grown this, right? You've got a board of people, you've got all sorts of other people. I mean, how do you lead the team through this? There's just so much. Where do you put your focus? Like you said, it sounds like you're trying to help the end consumer, the person who's trying to have that relationship with their horse. But tell me how you got from that first Equitopia, website to 8,000 courses that have been taken. That's an amazing feat.
I think people do want to know once they get the initial like, wow, I don't know the answer to that question, or my horse is doing something and I'm looking for answers. And once they start understanding that it's not a quick fix, there's no quick fix. My horse is not going forward. What's the wrong? It's kind of like asking, how long is this piece of string? So people start asking better questions, and then they start recognizing, okay, this is all connected. And then they have to decide if they're up for the challenge. And I think ultimately, again, like the motivation behind wanting to dive into this education and, endure being overwhelmed by all the things you're going to find is the end result with a better relationship with your horse, and knowing that you are advocating for this animal who is completely reliant on us as humans. They have little or no choice in who owns them, where they live, what they do, who fits their saddle, who trains them. They have little agency, and it is our responsibility to represent them from their nature and their characteristics as prey animals who are not designed to be ridden in the first place. They're just not. I mean, just because we decided to do it doesn't mean that it was an appropriate use for horses. You know, they are prey animals. They're designed to be spooked. Like a noise, a bag flying out of a bush is in their brain is like, this could be something that's going to kill me. I need to run. You know, they also hollow their backs if there was a weight, like horses in olden times, like were attacked by lions and things like that in Asia. Like if a lion would jump on their back, they would hollow their back because that was, you know, a predator. And so we asked them to override their instincts of prey animal in order to accommodate our wishes of, you know, I mean, the environments we put them in are completely unnatural for horses and very scary. So the only thing that overrides that is really developing a trusting relationship where the horse feels safe. And it's no less than humans. Like, we're kind of the same. You know, if you're walking down a dark alley with someone and it's scary, like the person you're with is going to determine how safe you feel. You know, whether it's like if you're walking with someone that you trust and has defended you before versus someone who, you know, maybe has smacked you. I don't know, maybe whatever. But it's like that feeling of, okay, if something happens, I feel that this person will protect me versus not. So similar with the horses. And on the other side of that is, if we don't have that, then we end up potentially in a learned helplessness situation. So horses, many of the training methods used today are based in the theory of dominance, which is used in a lot of animals. It was like used in circuses back when people didn't realize what was going on. Like it was like, look at these great people mastering these animals and having them do these things. Yeah. And once you started becoming aware and noticing, it's like, oh my God, this is like the ultimate in animal cruelty. You know, which is why circuses went by the way. And so, you know, at this point in horse culture, I mean, you know, it's some of the upper levels that people tend to admire, the elite levels, the Olympics and all that. These animals are literally in similar situations as circus animals. What is happening with these training mechanisms that are used in high-level performance horses are pretty heartbreaking for me to watch from a horse welfare perspective. Because it has become all about the money and the prestige and the winning, and it's become less and less about the actual horses. And this is why social license to operate is becoming a more talked about subject in the world of horses. And it does affect everybody who loves horses, because social license to operate is not going to be differentiating between the cruelty that is happening, and people who do care for their horses will all be lumped in together. So again, I'm not against riding horses if it's done properly, but it does need to be, protocols need to be adopted that really establishes the standards that allow us to describe riding as acceptable from a horse welfare perspective. Because, like, what do we look at? Facial expressions, tension in the body, and all the things that horses utilize in order to let us know when things are going okay or not okay. And that's, you know, what I set the standard for at Equitopia is, we do have to learn these things. It is our responsibility. We should let go of this entitlement, which is rampant in the horse world, that we're entitled to do these things with animals in the name of ownership and even caring. But love is not enough. You can love a horse and still cause unintentional harm. So you have to have the education. You have to have the awareness. You have to know. You have to say, why do I believe my horse is okay? Or what am I looking at that lets me know my horse is not okay? You have to know that from an empirical evidence and research-based perspective, and not someone saying, hey, your horse is fine, your horse is not fine.
I know it's fine. I'm totally sure it's fine.
Yeah.
Caroline, take us back in time. I mean, what advice would you give your younger self when you were just getting started with Equitopia?
When I was getting started with Equitopia, I mean, I'm still quite happy with the thought process of how do I establish and set it to be a global standard, because the website itself and the information, we are quite well known on a global perspective and very well respected by academics and horse owners alike. I'm happy about that. I definitely, the technical side of things has definitely been challenging. So I would probably take a view like I did when I started with horses, is I probably should have done a little more research on, this concept of, I thought I was setting something up that was to do with horses, but there are other aspects of setting up something like this, which is, the aim to be a global influence in changing horse culture that is nothing to do with horses. So it's been a challenging learning curve to understand what it takes in order to set something like this up, which is changing culture, which is, it's a daunting task, but something that I'm passionate about because I don't see any other solution to changing the world for horses so that it works for them. And so, I'm going to stay committed to that, and I learn, I fall down, I get up again, and I keep going because, this is
This is
this
what
is
you
my
do.
passion. This is my mission.
Now,
Yeah, that's what
I
I do.
love that you and I are cut from the same cloth because you didn't know all this, but it wasn't there, and you decided, hey,
Yeah,
if I have these questions, somebody else has these questions, right? And it was all
yeah,
you
yeah.
figured out as you go. When I started Doobert, it was the same way. I had no idea what the heck I was doing, but you learn and you make mistakes, and then you learn and you pivot and you keep going because you're fueled by that passion to make a difference in the lives of these animals.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's what I'm doing,
I love
hopefully.
that. I love the fact that you're targeting as I newbies, people like me. Before we started recording, I was telling you I've always loved horses, but I've never delved into the world of horse ownership because I have no freaking clue what it goes into taking care of a horse. And the last thing I want to do is cause more harm than good, right? So I've always said someday I'll carve out the time, I'll find some courses, I'll get educated, I'll learn everything I need to learn before I would go down this path of horse ownership. And so now to know that you exist is actually nice for me because it's, as you said, they're sentient beings. They're very smart. They know, and they live a long time. So this is not something where it's like, oh, a couple of years, figure this out. No, the horses, 30 years plus. And as you said, you're going to have some challenges along the way that you need to take care of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. And changing hands is difficult. I mean, it is like when I talk about the awareness of horses and, again, they're sometimes treated like a commodity where people sell them on. And, again, I know there's a practical aspect to like not everybody is going to be able to keep a horse for their entire life for circumstances. But the reality is, again, like horses are herd animals, they're social animals. And so every time you change their environment or they move and they lose friends or whatever, it is impactful for them. It's emotionally distressing for them. And so we have to, again, take into consideration the impact and our expectations of how horses cope, or some better than others, with like changing locations, as I say, changing neighbors or changing riders. I mean, it's a big deal. We're not like horses don't look at human and look at us as interchangeable. I mean, they recognize individuals, and so all of these things are super, super important.
Caroline, as we wrap up, my last question for you is what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I mean, I want to shape a culture that is guided by the evidence and research that is there to help us understand our approach and our problem solving. It's not that we can set something up to be perfect. There's no one size fits all. But the idea is to say, well, if we're going to get a horse, what would the standard expectation be? Like that you should educate yourself a little bit first before you buy a horse. I mean, I've written a 7-page blog on before you buy a horse to try and set expectations that are realistic. Because most people, again, with the horses, I'm going to get a horse and I'm going to ride. I'm going to have a fantastic time, the wind blowing in my hair. We're out across the fields and we're winning medals and all this kind of stuff. And that's not the reality. Like the reality, again, is like it's less about to convert John Kennedy's thing. It's not about what our horses can do for us. It should be what we can do for our horses to make sure that they're empowered to do the things that we want. And if they're not, for some reason that's through no fault of their own, are we still going to be there for these horses? Is there value attached to them and what they bring to us in a partnership way, and because they're just so amazing, versus well, if I can't win a medal or if I can't ride them because they've injured themselves, then what kind of owner am I at that point? Am I still there for that horse who's done everything that they can to meet our expectations? So Like that's the kind of mindset that I want to leave with people, is that again, like, and this is, I say this repeatedly, it's like, let's let go of the entitlement aspect of owning horses and riding horses, and let's get really involved into the responsibility side of what it means for us to take responsibility for these animals' lives. I mean, we control their destiny really at the end of the day, either good or bad, by how much we know and how much awareness we have and how much commitment we have to actually just being good owners for these animals.
Well, I love your mission. I love everything you've done thus far, and I'm really glad you came on the show to share it. Thank you, Caroline.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.